Hi everyone, my name is Tara Westwell and today's Tuesday, which means it's time to discuss our book of the week, which is Love Letters to a Serial Killer by Tasha Coryell. First, this is a spoiler-free section, so if you haven't read this book yet, don't worry about it. It won't be spoiled for you here. There will be some spoiler-related things that I want to discuss, but that'll be later on in the video and you will get plenty of warning. If you'd like to join in on any of the discussions, send me your thoughts, comments, or even a short video clip of you discussing the book, then I'll list the next upcoming 4 books in the description below. I rated this book 2.5 stars. There were definitely moments that I enjoyed, but overall, I wasn't really a huge fan. It was one of those books where I spent a lot of time sort of thinking, what on earth is going on? And not necessarily in like a twisty, mind-blowing way, but more in a deeply frustrating, slightly chaotic, girl, what are you doing kind of way. Like, I've read books with very flawed characters. I've read books that have unreliable narrators, messy women, ones that just are full of morally questionable decisions and mental health issues, but just this was something else. So, quick summary. This book follows Hannah, who is a 30-something-year-old woman who feels like her life is a bit stagnant after she's been ghosted and it feels like her friends are moving on without her. She becomes involved in this online true crime community who are obsessed with solving the murders of 4 women in Atlanta. When a handsome lawyer named William is arrested for the crimes, Hannah begins to write him letters, and what started off as curiosity quickly spirals into obsession, and Hannah's already messy life unravels even further. If I had to compare this to any other book, I would probably say something like Till Death by Basayo Mataluko, maybe combined with something like The Murder After the Night Before by Katie Brent. It definitely has that messy, kind of chaotic, female-led thriller energy. I wouldn't say that I was hooked. I was definitely frustrated. I mean, right from the very start, I wasn't a fan of Hannah. I thought that she was very entitled, self-involved, and just overall really frustrating. As you get further into the book, it does become clear that there's obviously some other form of mental health at play here, so I could see her through a different lens, but I just wasn't a huge fan. Like, even with that understanding, it didn't make her choices any less maddening. The book is easy to read and it does move along fairly quickly. However, quite early on in the book, I did think that there was a big possibility that this might have been my first DNF of the year. Just didn't work for me. I didn't find her particularly relatable, and I didn't really enjoy spending time in her head. She was not a great friend, she wasn't a great employee, she sucked as a daughter, and while flawed characters can absolutely work, this just felt like it went so hard in the look how chaotic I am that it just lost some nuance. The side characters also felt kind of underdeveloped, and that may have been intentional because Hannah is such a self-involved narrator. You know, the people around her might be more blurred, but it just resulted in me not really feeling invested in anyone. The concept is definitely strong on paper, and I feel like it should have worked for me, but it just didn't, and their dynamic just wasn't compelling enough to carry the story. There were moments in the writing that were funny and sharp, and those were the moments that kept me reading. I will say that I am quite a big fan in books where the characters are very self-aware and it can be done in a way that's very witty. I just wish that the book had leaned more into that. For me, the concept just didn't really work. The relationship didn't work, the characters didn't really work, and while there were moments along the journey that I did enjoy more than I anticipated, overall, I just genuinely didn't really feel invested. Maybe with some character tweaks, I would have enjoyed the book a little bit more, but I wouldn't say that it was particularly suspenseful. I wasn't really surprised, and I was kind of able to guess where the ending was headed. the ending wasn't bad, it wasn't enough to completely shift my opinion of the book. So as for the question, would I recommend the book? I probably wouldn't go out of my way to recommend this one. That's not to say that people won't enjoy it. There are absolutely readers out there who will love this one, but personally there are just books in this space that I would recommend first. So, will I be reading any more by this author? I wouldn't rule it out completely. I mean, this is the first book I've read by this author, and while this one didn't necessarily work out for me, I wouldn't say never. I'm not going to go out of my way to go and pick one up immediately. So earlier on in the video, I said that you get plenty of warning for any upcoming spoilers. Now this is that moment, so if you haven't read this book yet, I would suggest going and doing that first, because beyond this point there will absolutely be spoilers. For me, I didn't really find anything in this book majorly shocking. I mean, even the pregnancy reveal I didn't find too surprising because, once contraception is mentioned and then immediately ignored while everyone is making terrible decisions, you kind of know where the book is headed. Honestly, for me, I think that the more shocking thing was just the relentless chaos of Hannah's choices. And I think that was genuinely more shocking than the twist, really. One small moment that I did actually really like in this book was fairly early on, and it did actually help convince me to continue reading the book, was when she was kind of talking about hobbies and saying how on dating apps people lie about hobbies because no one wants to admit that sometimes they like to eat good food and sleep in and just watch TV, whereas she could admit these things to him because her worst habits are nothing compared to his. It was funny, it was dark, and it was surprisingly self-aware, and I do wish that we'd had more moments like that in the book because that sharp humour actually worked really well for me. I do think that the book does raise some interesting points on loneliness and obsession and how, the true crime community can sometimes blur the boundaries. And I think that Hannah is clearly looking for meaning and connection and identity in all of the wrong places. There is also something there on how, people feeling left behind when their friends and family are moving forward, whether that's with marriage or careers or families, and how that resentment can kind of build if it's not dealt with. And that is an interesting point. I just don't feel like the execution really, matched its full potential. So overall, Love Letters to a Serial Killer was a strange, chaotic and frustrating read that did have moments of humour and an interesting premise, but ultimately it just didn't come together for me. It wasn't awful, it just wasn't really my thing, but if you've read it, then let me know what you thought, especially if you really enjoyed it, because I'm interested to hear why. Next week, we're discussing House of Bane and Blood by Alexis Melard, so don't forget to get your thoughts and comments in by Sunday the 3rd of May at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram or Discord. The following week will be Wolf, but don't forget if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, we do now list the next 4 books down below along with the discussion dates. That way you can choose the genre that best suits you and the best time frame to read it in. Thank you all for joining, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and I will see you next week. Bye! If you like romance, fantasy, or even thriller, basically anything fiction book related, then I suggest you head on over to the channel's intro video, where you can find out more information on how you can take part in this online book club. We announce books at least 4 weeks in advance, and we accept your bookish feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comment below video, send in a voice note, or even send me a short video clip of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you can just send me a direct message.